go home. So I go to the hotel, and my suit is dry. Awful night. I got to peel my clothes off. That was an awesome night.
Yeah, well, that's how you were last night. Last night was
Oh yeah, I had to peel. I had to peel it off last night.
Everybody was peeling.
Oh yeah.
I was so wet.
Yes. Yes. We straight? All right, folks. Roland Martin here, NAACP. Yes, Tamika, Marilyn, and I were just talking about last night's party, the Young Professionals Party. In fact, so before we even get to what we're going to talk about with Tamika, let's talk about, we tweeted last night. Okay, this is what I don't understand. This is just me, okay? Mm-hmm. I grew up in Houston where we would have family get-togethers, and it would go from somebody drop by, and then somebody else called, and they heard somebody talking in the background, and then they came by, and then about 2 hours later, it's about 25 people at the house. And then my daddy started playing music. The next thing you know, this thing goes on for 6 hours. Wow. Okay, so that's how our party turned. Well, I don't understand folks who have this attitude that as you get older, it's some parties you can't go to. Where I grew up, where we all rocked in the same spot, and music was played that appealed to different people.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're right, because my mother is from Alabama and my father's from North Carolina. So the garage and the yard was lit all the time, and all age groups were there. However, last night we were on the older curb of the party.
But I
we
ain't
had a
care.
ball. And matter of fact, if it wasn't for you, I don't know. At one point, like you said, it was right here, but you helped us get it all the way up to the top.
Well, so what happened was, it started early because this young Omega, it was so, okay, I ain't going to say it was like a gang thing, but he started throwing his little hooks. I said, bro, you don't want to do that. I said, you don't want to do that. And he kept going, oh, no. I said, I'm telling you, you don't want to do that. I said, just because you 20-something, don't think
you can't jump.
Me being 49 that I can't hop, that I can't spin. I said, I'm telling you. And so then the capper, I said, dude, I'm trying to tell you too. I said, don't y'all think for a second that I can't.
Can't hop because you was hopping.
And the problem is, all these young cats, they think,
they really can't hop like
they
you
like,
can, though.
You old head. You can. I'm like, okay. If y'all want to go, let's go.
Roland is different.
And then he was like, oh, you going to need Ben Gay? I said, no, bro.
Oh, no.
I do this all the time. I said, I ain't going to need Ben Gay. I ain't going to need no Icy Hot. We do this all the time.
You may be using Icy Hot and we don't know about it.
No,
Roland. Don't front.
I don't.
Don't front.
Because I dance all the time.
You do.
No, I'm like,
you're a great dancer.
I said my knees, my hips work.
Your parents great? Are they great dancers?
You know what? My parents though dance, but they like me.
My mother is a dancer.
They ain't gonna go.
She went viral on Facebook, like over 5 million views.
Oh, really?
On a line dancing video.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean they'll dance, but like even my brother, no, they ain't go. I'm just way different. I don't know. I think.
And you like Marvin C's music, that good music.
I listen to everything. See, I got 10,000 songs on iPod, so I can go from the juke joint to hip hop to gospel to jazz to opera to R&B to Motown, Philly sound. I hit them with the soca, the reggae, the salsa. I got the Zydeco, second line. I ain't got polka.
Okay, you don't have.
There's no polka music on my iPod. No,
yeah,
polka don't make the cut.
That's not your
polka
style.
Don't make the cut. Don't make the cut. Oh, but I get it in. That's why I got to go to Trinidad. I got to go to Carnival. I got to do that.
Yeah. Oh Lord, Roland. No video footage.
I got to go to Carnival.
Don't take the camera crew with you. Lord Jesus.
I ain't been to Mardi Gras.
Really?
I have never gone to Mardi Gras, so I got to go to Mardi Gras. I told somebody, I said, look, I need to be on somebody's boat, somebody float next year.
You
don't
crew. Need to be on the float. Please.
I need to be on somebody.
Y'all don't understand what Roland does. When you come out, it's hard body. Like, you dance serious.
Oh, hell yes. I'm telling you.
And you'll be on the float.
If I get to the hotel and dry, I'm pissed.
Yeah, he said she got to peel your clothes off.
You don't understand. That's how I was in college.
Night.
When I was in college, people were like, how's the party? See this dry-ass shirt?
Yeah, this guy needs to also do comedy.
See this dry-ass shirt? That's how the party was.
Lord.
But that's
a bad DJ.
But you got to ring that bad. Oh, don't even get me started on bad DJs. I can't stand. I can't stand bad DJs. Okay, we are going to get to the interview we're going to talk about. But let me just tell y'all something right now. All DJs. As a matter of fact, I'm going to post a video with D-Nice for D shot of Essence. If the dance floor is empty, change your damn music.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
We at NABJ. This dude DJing, and I'm sitting in the bar outside of the party, and these people are leaving. I'm like, where y'all going? They were like, oh, DJ playing all this music. And he was playing music that was offensive to these sisters. And I went to DJ booth. I said, say, bro, there's a lot of professional women here. You need to change the music. I said, that little BS you playing, they ain't dancing to that.
They don't want that.
So it's probably about 100 people on the floor.
At
okay?
an NABJ conference.
There's 100 people on the floor. I said, bro, I need you got to put on Before I Let Go. I'm just trying to tell you. I said, listen to me. You're going to play these 3 songs. The floor is going to be packed. Matter of fact, they're going to be on the side of the floor. He put it on. Room just erupts.
Oh, Roland was in charge.
His ass goes back to that crap he was
playing. Man, he messed it up. And you said that's it.
Dude, if you put a new song on and the floor is filled, you stay along with that theme.
That's right. He probably don't know how to play it. You know, everybody can't do a classic set.
But it's like, it ain't hard.
To some people it is, especially when they get caught up in the younger thing. It's hard to go back to them classics.
And then you got DJs who DJing for their boys. Okay, I don't care how you feel. If you at a party and there's 10 dudes on the floor, ain't no women on the floor, change the music. Because there's no party in America where you DJing for the dudes in the room.
You know, you should put a soundtrack out. Roland Martin soundtrack.
I'm telling you, I can't. Matter of fact, I tweeted. I can't remember the hashtag I used. I'm just gonna pull up all my tweets before. I tweeted my top 50 "Get Your Sweat On" songs.
Yeah, I like that.
Cause I can't. I'm telling you, I can't. I just because come on, there's nothing worse. You getting dressed up, you go out, you're looking for a good time, and DJ mess it up. Then you gotta go to the hotel, and now you're mad. And you gotta get up the next morning for them boring ass workshops, and then you mad. you feel better when you group like, man.
Yeah, I got up this morning for a 7:30 breakfast. I was all good. It was all good. I felt good.
Like, how much sleep you got to make it? 3 hours.
That's right.
How much sleep you got? 3 hours, but it was lit.
It was lit.
Can you imagine getting up like punk ass DJ messed everything up? No. Okay. All right. Enough of that. All right. So first off, let's talk about the panel. Let's talk about the panel you moderated. We live streamed it, and you had all the different voices, brothers involved in hip hop. Yep. What was the big takeaway?
A lot of things. How to get people involved in this midterm election, you know, making sure that artists and all these influencers are engaged. We also talked a lot about how corporations are holding the purse strings of some of these networks and entertainers, and they have teams around that are really kind of stopping artists from being able to speak out on certain issues. So how do we play that? How do we as activists help these artists? How do we make sure that artists have the types of teams around them that are going to help craft their messages versus trying to stop them from speaking out on social justice issues? So it was a really, really strong panel. Chris Gotti was on the panel, and we know he was responsible for Murder Inc., you know, and Ashanti's career, Ja Rule's career. We talked about the fact that Murder Inc. has contributed to some of the misogyny and other things, and how he is now trying to give back to the community. So that was good. Greg Mathis is obviously not in the hip-hop community, but he talked a lot about the responsibility and just what he saw from artists as he was growing up, and the responsibility today, what it should be. And then we had Vibe Magazine, Daytwan Thomas on the panel. He talked about the fact that what they do is just give the news. So if I'm thrown off of an American Airlines flight, that's news. Rather than them trying to take a position on everything, they're telling the news. And then obviously someone from BET, John Sandifer, was on from BET, and he handles content. So that it was really good. And I think the other thing we talked about was black women, how we are represented, in the industry. And what we came to a conclusion around is how black women are ignored, yet and still most of these different entities, 80 to 90% of their staff are women.
Right.
So, just trying to figure out why is it that we're still not getting the coverage that we deserve? Because we had Shakishia Clemens, the young woman who was attacked in the Waffle House, by the police officers. She was with us, and we just tried to figure out why is it that networks and others are just not talking about Shakishia Clemens and other black women who are abused.
Well, I mean, I just think that, first of all, I think what people have to understand is, as somebody who has spent time in mainstream media and black media, the reality is, in mainstream media, you have largely white men.
Absolutely.
Who are running that.
Really running it,
period.
right.
In newspapers, you look at sports. I tell folks all the time, don't even get caught up about even in sports. If you want to understand how white males dominate sports, watch one of those NFL Network shows where it's top 10 plays or top 10 running backs. You're going to see radio show host after radio show host who's a white male. Columnist, television announcer. You'll see very few African Americans and virtually no women of color.
Wow, that's right.
Or any. So that's the best indication in terms of what it is. And so that's why when people say, well, why is it that if a white woman comes up missing, oh, it's wall-to-wall coverage. It's a black woman. It's easy because when a white woman comes up missing,
they see
those white male executives see their wives, their daughters, their nieces, and as a black woman, they're like, I don't know who that is.
Exactly.
I mean, that's what drives
it. It is, and the black women that they all tout, like we have 60% of our workforce is black women, but are they in the decision-making rooms?
Right.
And that's the real issue. So,
all right, I'll give you a perfect example. I mean, several years ago, in ABJ, in our convention in Las Vegas, we gave CNN one of our top awards for diversity. Right now, there are no African Americans in a decision-making position at CNN. You got brothers at HLN, but there are none. I mean, so to go from you had several to now none.
Right.
I mean, Jeff Zucker has to be called out
Absolutely.
on that. And you can't say, well, you're the worldwide leader. And this is not, oh, Roland, you got to ground against Jeff Zucker. I'm like, no, I don't.
Right.
Where are your black people?
Raising the issue. Exactly.
Who has P&L responsibility? Do you have any black direct reports?
Right.
Are there any African Americans who are vice presidents, executive vice presidents, decision making? And the answer is no.
Right, right. And obviously that impacts what happens in the newsroom, right?
Yes.
Because what we want to see, the information that we want, we're not always getting from CNN and all these networks. And that is because, again, who's making the decisions? And it's not just about talking heads. That's important that we have people who can articulate the stories like Angela and Simone Sanders and a number of people. But it's not the same thing as who is making the decision about what news they're going to talk about every night. Because they don't come in to tell to choose their stories.
They have no control over that. They have no control over that. And the reality is this here, even when we talk about those contributors, those networks also are not giving those folks shots. And I've said it. Bottom line is, when you see Angela and Simone and David Swirlick and Paris Bernard and Shermichael Singleton, when you see all of those people, those are all folks who came through my platform.
Absolutely.
And so when you see Paul Butler on MSNBC, when you see even though Lauren Coates was on Chris Matthews' show before, but in terms of the show she got to host, guest host was mine.
That's right.
All those folks. Now Scott Bolden, Fox News calls him left and right now. Yodit Tewelde, Monique Presley. Those networks wouldn't give folks a shot.
Absolutely.
And that's because you don't have executives who are saying, hey, here's some new and fresh voices. So I think just like in media, so I think in music, that's what we're seeing. And so even though we're 25 years away from America being a nation that's majority of people of color, we are still dealing with the fact that if you do not have power in suites,
absolutely,
it doesn't matter who that face is. The person hosting a show or a contributor on television is the same as that artist.
That's right. That's right. That's it. That's exactly right. I mean, I don't have anything to add to that except to say you are.
And that's also where the money is.
That's exactly where the money is. I mean, that's the truth of the matter. That's where the budgets are. That's where their investment in community and all the things they're doing is coming from that power structure that is basically white male. And that's it. And so even white women have a problem with that. I know. They're all up in the Women's March.
Let's talk about that. Obviously, January 2017, set records all across the country. One of the things that I said then, I said it the other day when we were at the I did a panel on Saturday, Black Votes Matter panel. Janae Ingram was there as well. And I told people there, I said, y'all were deliberate in information gathering. Because we talked about it, I despise civil rights folks who put on rallies and marches with no data collection to know who was even there and to follow up.
That's right. Well, and that was the main focus. I mean, first of all, you beat me up about it every day, and so we definitely got it. And we put a platform out with our unity principles. What do we stand for? What are the issues? Click these links for resources, for data on the different challenges that people of color and just marginalized communities are dealing with in general. That was all there, the resources, and it's still there. And every time we do something now, we get involved in an immigration issue or any issue, there's some research being done, and we're partnering with other organizations. There's so many people running around, we're not going to get into it today, that have large Twitter following, they have large, all these things. And in terms of the resources that they're providing to the community, the education, it's not there. And so when folks say, well, why are people not turning out? Why are people not turning out to vote? That's why, because they don't feel like they're really connected. You just come and asking them for their vote, but you're not telling them what's your platform.
Right.
And then more importantly, speaking to the platform that matters to them, you know. And so that's what Women's March was I'm very proud of that work, that a part of our unity principles and a part of our platform, it was stated that it was the most radical platform in terms of any gathering that large that the country has ever seen, because women were at the table working to ensure that we weren't just talking about reproductive rights, we were talking about reproductive justice. How does reproductive rights intersect with women of color? And how is it that a woman who is talking about having an abortion doesn't necessarily have to deal with the fact that I can't have kids because my community has gun violence, poverty, you know, lack of education, and all these things. And that's where the reproductive justice issue came in. So we dealt with all of that. We deal with criminal justice reform. We have been dealing with Shakishia Clemens, sticking on that story, helping people to understand that Waffle House may not have been the ones to physically pick her up, derobe her, and throw her out or arrest her, but they still are responsible from a corporate responsibility perspective in terms of how she was handled, and then being a part of the call, because Roland, there are charges against her right now. There are criminal charges pending against Shakishia Clemens after she was abused in the Waffle House by the police officers. So instead of them having the criminal charges, she has them. The Waffle House ought to be standing with her, saying,
right,
hey,
drop these charges.
Drop these charges. This situation got out of hand. We're sorry that our employee called the police on you because of 50 cents for silverware that is free. That's clear. Waffle House has said we don't charge for plasticware. We don't charge for that. So there should have been no issue that your people started it. So why would you not join the cause? But they don't have to respect us. And so, you know, that's the fight we're up against.
Even though, as you laid out, the unity agenda, all the things that y'all done, you still are dealing with folks who, the Women's March, that's about white women. And then the people talk about the white women, 53% who voted for Trump. And y'all's position has been like, look, we know what took place, but what happened leading up to November 2016 doesn't necessarily dictate then what happens now.
Absolutely.
And it's been interesting having to watch you and Carmen Perez and Linda Sarsour deal with people of color who believe that y'all are sellouts and you're traitors because you are leading this women's entity and not one that's just specific to people of color.
Well, I mean, that's what intersectionality is all about, right? Like, we're actually trying to put Kimberly Crenshaw's her idea of intersectionality into practice. And Kimberly Crenshaw, for people who don't know, is an activist, a brilliant mind in terms of a thought leader. She was a professor at UCLA, and she's the one who sort of coined the term intersectionality, which ultimately means exactly what I explained as it relates to reproductive rights, reproductive justice. We have a similar issue, but we come at it from different perspectives, and it impacts our communities differently. And can we work together? I don't know of any major movement that has happened in this country and anywhere else where it was all one group of people who were out there marching and fighting and organizing, where all the resources just came from a particular group. And trust me, I would love to just organize with black folks, but I don't know where that works. You know about because I don't know where that works. I just know that it's very difficult sometimes to get all of us on the same page. page, just like it's going to be difficult to get all communities on the same page. The bottom line is check our platform. Look at who was on that stage on January of 2017. Look at who we presented. We had people who were formerly incarcerated. The Native American community was there. We made sure that it was a diverse group of people and that issues that you would not have seen on that stage, it would not have been a part of the platform that Carmen and Linda worked so hard to develop. You would not have seen that if it were not for women of color being in the midst of this opportunity in this space. And the reality with the Women's March is, yes, white women called it, but we felt that there should be no convening of a group of white women in this country, and that they would say that they represent the voices of all women, because there were black women signed up to go. There were some who are not really aware of all the political issues. They were ready to go. So they would have been represented on that day by white women who had no idea about our issues. And we went to the table. We went and built a table, by the way, but and then we jumped on top of the table to make sure that all of our issues were out there. And if you look at what we've been doing since January 2017, you will find that the Women's March has continued to be engaged on very, very, very specific issues that deal with oppressed people, and that's something that I'm just very proud of. And I get it. There are genuine concerns about white women organizing. Trust me, I deal with it every day. There's tension within the Women's March when trying to organize with people who don't necessarily understand your issues. But sometimes they don't care. But
the reality though is, you have to enlighten somebody who's clueless, because look, I think what happens a lot of times is people we assume no they know, and I tell people all the time, I said some do, but a lot of folks really have no clue. Right. They just don't have the level of experiences with black folks and others. And you have to no, let me explain to y'all what this means and how this affects us, and have you experienced that where somebody went, I literally just did not know.
Every day. It happens every day because the question we kept getting, even from Bob Bland, who was one of the four co-chairs along with Linda and Carmen and me, and she kept saying, what does race have to do with these issues? She just didn't understand why we kept talking about race, and that was very intentional. We were talking about race on purpose, and it was a contentious space, man. People were
they were
like, what do you mean? And we were like, what you mean you don't know? But that's the difference between leadership and just being an activist or a person in the movement. When you claim to be a leader, as we are, you have an obligation to educate not just white women, not just white men, but even your own people, because even we don't know all of our issues.
Right.
So let's not be so high and mighty. Like, we up on everything. Some of us don't even know who the district attorney is in our community, yet we're upset about police issues. So we all have a lot of learning to do. Trust me.
One of the things that you and I often talked about, which is what y'all were doing with the Justice League, but also with the Women's March, infrastructure, and that has been one of the early criticisms that I had with different folks, very prominent in Black Lives Matter, where I said, and they were like, well, look, but that's where we get in trouble, and I kept saying, I said, look. Y'all can criticize the NAACP all you want to. Right. You can criticize the Urban League. You can criticize all these organizations. But the reality is this here. They still exist. SNCC no longer exists. Right. CORE doesn't exist. Right. I said those critical civil rights groups don't exist. I said because the infrastructure went away.
That's right.
And so you simply cannot have a movement that is centered around an individual who has no ties to anything and has nothing.
A number of individuals who are just moving around.
But just because again, and people will go, yeah, but the beauty of this movement is there are no leaders. You can't show me a movement where there are no leaders, because you have to have. SNCC had hierarchy.
There are leaders.
There are leaders. I mean, because at some point you got to make a decision.
That's right.
And sometimes,
and
somebody
got to take the heat.
Say
too.
yes or no.
And a bill needs to be paid if you're going to keep the phones on. And who's going to be in charge of that? Who's putting stuff in their name? Who's signing incorporation documents? How are you going to protect your brand? I mean, you have to have leadership. But I also understand this sort of decentralized model because Justice League has that. But let's think about Justice League. It is a decentralized model where Myson Lennon and Angelo Pinto and others are part of the decision-making process. But there's still the Gathering for Justice, which is our organizational brand that Harry Belafonte is on the board of, and so am I, and Carmen is executive director. And the Justice League gets to make decisions about what we're going to do on a local perspective, even some national stuff. But when there has to be a decision made on behalf of all of our interests, and particularly the brand, Carmen is responsible for making those decisions.
Right.
So there has to be some leadership.
But I want to make that point because I think people they got caught up in that. And in fact, I remember when Latinos had those May Day marches several years ago, and I said then, because folks were saying, well, why didn't we see, action after that? I said infrastructure. I said follow through. I have said this, and I said directly to the minister. The Million Man March, massive gathering. The Millions More movement, massive gathering. I said, but after the event, if you don't have the infrastructure and the plan and the follow through and the everyday work, all you had was an event.
That's right. It's everyday work. I mean, for us to be able to get 630 women, mainly white women, to be arrested just 2 weeks ago on behalf of family separation. It took the fact that we still have relationships with these people.
Right.
We know how to reach
them. They had to be organized.
We have a list. We know how to get them there. We had to get people in on buses. We had to pay their $50 fee.
Which means that you had to plan before.
Right, exactly.
Okay, if we get arrested, this is how much it's going to cost.
When we get arrested.
Who's the person with the checkbook?
Right, exactly.
Who's going down?
The cash.
That's what I'm saying. Who's the attorney?
Exactly.
But that's infrastructure.
Exactly. And it's an important part of our work. Probably more important than the action. Because if something happens to the people while organizing, then that kills your credibility. So we have to be organized in that way. And sometimes that means you might not see Linda and I being arrested, or Carmen may not be able to do the action that day. And it gets like that when you're managing something as big as the Women's March. But we're actually launching other initiatives around women of color because we do believe that Black women need a space within Women's March so that they can feel safe, and other groups. And we want to be able to do that. So I want to say again, it is a justifiable concern. It's a justified concern. Like, I get it. How dare you decide you're going to do a march when half of your family members or white women in your families went and voted for this person? You need to march on your cousins and your aunties and in your own communities. I get that. But at the end of the day, I don't think that we can allow one thing to take away from the other. There's 47% of white women who did not vote for him, and they deserve to be a part of a movement as well, because we're all traumatized in this joint. If you've been watching The Handmaid's Tale, I don't know if you've seen it. You need to go check it out. The Handmaid's Tale is something you need to see.
Why?
It's powerful because it's a show about white women becoming slaves, and they sold their own women into it. And so they believe, as the ones who sold the women into slavery, that somehow they are now going to be, they're going to be privileged. And eventually they find out that they're slaves to their white men as well. And it's a powerful show. 2 seasons.
Any Black people in it?
Yeah, there's a Black woman who got out.
Okay.
Because that's what we do.
Because, I can't watch
you
a
have
show.
To watch the
watch a show with no color.
It's in there. It's in there. You a fool. I swear.
I can't watch a show with no color.
Roland.
I just can't. What has been the biggest surprise for you from your own people?
It's been a mixture of things. I mean, are you talking about the masses or the folks that I'm close to? Because, those two different. So the masses has been extremely supportive. Like, just everyday folks walking through the NAACP halls and having people come up and say,
we praying for you. We love you. We hug you.
We with you. We support you. Same thing happened at Essence last week. I received so much love. I think I tweeted about it. You retweeted. I cried so much because older ladies were like, we've been watching the news. We see what's happening to you. We love you. We support you. So that's been great. But there's always this flip side when you have people who you thought were your friends and you find out when you're in the darkest space in your life that they're not there, you know, and that their friendship really was always based upon either what you could offer or just sort of the idea of you, but not really being with you in the trenches. And that's why I appreciate you and Mark Thompson and just Hazel Dukes and Rachel Nordling, and I could go on with a list of folks who stood with me through a very challenging time in my life when I went through this very public situation in terms of my relationship with Minister Farrakhan. And it was really a very difficult time, and there were a lot of people who did turn their backs, really. And it is what it is, because I believe that God clears it out.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
He empties out the space so you can see and be very clear
You go,
about who's
okay,
with you.
I got
Exactly.
you.
I got you. You know, and I had a lot of sisters tweeting, and people who have major platforms stood up for me. People who I didn't even know were paying attention. They jumped in. Sean King really jumped in for me and took some major hits, blows, because he got involved. He said, I'm doing it on purpose because I'm not going to leave you out here by yourself. But there were people who I expected to show up, and they didn't. A lot of it is people are just scary. They're scared. But I will tell you that.
They're scared of the heat.
They're scared of the heat. But I tell you one thing, it all comes around. Like, everybody has to deal with something. And when it's your turn, I just hope you don't learn the way I learned who's there for you.
You said it earlier in terms of how people respond. And for a lot of people who are not in the public eye, they may not see it, feel it, experience it. But talk about black love. I mean, I'm talking about you talk about, the number of times and I rarely cry, but been moved to tears. I remember, even think about it. I was in an airport in Atlanta, and a brother who worked at the airport didn't go down like Pac-Man did, where the brothers started fighting him. But a brother walked up to me, and I was waiting on the plane. I'm at the gate. He walks up and he shakes my hand. He goes, "Thank you." I said, and so I knew he was talking about.
Right.
He goes, "No, thank you," and walks off. That was it. That's all he said.
Just thank you for everything.
That's all he said. He didn't specify. He didn't say TV. He didn't say radio. He didn't say. That's all he said. I knew what he was talking about. And I tell people all the time, I said, y'all really don't understand what that means. And Kevin Johnson said something when I spoke in Sacramento. He was introducing me. And I felt it, but this is the first time somebody articulated it. He said, what Roland Martin does for black people, he said it's so important. He said, but y'all need to understand how we feel about him is his fuel to keep going.
Yeah. I mean, really, that's so I was going to say, when I'm thinking about black love, you have to love black people to do what we do every day. And we do it differently, but it's all the same, that we're willing to take the risk on behalf of our people. Because once you step out there and you're in the public eye and you're talking that stuff and calling out networks and folks and, organizing and trying to lift us from the bottom, it is a very dangerous space. You're always up for attack. And,
yeah.
And, even when we were talking about Minister Farrakhan, right, my relationship with the minister is like anybody else's. I see him, he's got great things to say. There's some stuff I agree with, other things I don't. I've attended some events, but I'm more so connected to the roots of the Nation of Islam and what they have done in our communities. Yet and still, there were some people who were able to take that and try to just destroy me, but black people held me. Black people held me. That black love was there to say, we understand it. Now, we're not saying we agree either. We don't agree necessarily with you.
Right.
We don't necessarily agree with him, because that's the complexity of the black experience.
Oh, it was
all over the place in terms of how we feel about each other.
Well, I had to. I was talking to somebody. I was talking to somebody, a very prominent individual, and I'll let him share that conversation one day. But he did not know that in Dr. King's book, Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community, that Dr. King critiqued Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam, but also praised what they have done for black folks who've been incarcerated and the morals and the values. It's in the book.
It's in the book.
If
That's
y'all,
right. No,
I ain't
it
making
is.
it up. It's in the book. What Dr. King wrote, that he appreciated
That's right.
what the nation has done for how they transform black communities.
Exactly. I mean, and you can't take that away from it. And I said when I wrote a piece to follow up on, people's criticism of me being at the Savior's Day event, which I've been going to all my life, I said that wherever my people are is where I must be. I know that the people of the Nation of Islam and the work that the minister has done and has led his brothers and sisters to do on street corners across this country couldn't have just been done by anybody. It was done infrastructure, right? The way that we saw the nation move, how there's like no other black leader that we know that has been able to call the types of gatherings that Minister Farrakhan and the nation have been able to call, to gather people together. And so, when you're trying to organize in very complex spaces, you find yourself in a lot of rooms where, and there's some rooms with some folks that these folks agree with that I'm more so against some of the mess that they do behind the scenes.
Right.
Behind the scenes, because the truth of the matter is, this is your black, your what you call them, your good Negro, your shiny Negro that you like, and meanwhile they're selling us out when they're in these rooms, and and so I'm just, I guess where I am now is just really trying to figure out, for me, what does it mean to know that everyday people is where it's at. It's not about these big rooms and stages and all of that. It's just like in the hood, on street corners.
Oh yeah,
that's where we gotta be.
For me, I experienced when I had to deal with GLAAD in 2012. My Super Bowl tweets that had nothing to do with gay people. I literally was cracking on soccer the whole day, and sit in, maybe do a couple of apologies. And my deal was like, if somebody was offended by what I said, I apologize. But I was not talking to somebody.
Right.
We're talking about a particular group. Right. And what was interesting is, you're right, the shiny black folks, all MIA. All MIA. Scared to text, scared to call, don't want to say anything. But it was everyday black people who blew up the emails and the phone calls and the fax machines of CNN and said, don't you touch that brother.
Right.
And I asked the people who were like, oh, yeah, Roland got fired. I'm like, no, I didn't. Right. So I didn't get fired. I said, I got suspended. I said, and didn't lose a penny. So I got paid the whole time. Right. I said, and I was there for another year even after that. But it was black folks who said, no. We know what you've done for us.
That's right.
And we got your back. Right. I had black gay people
exactly
who said, no. Who said, when you go meet with GLAAD, we going to roll with you.
Yeah.
And there was so many of them that what GLAAD actually said, no, we ain't doing a meeting.
Right.
We're not going to do a group meeting.
Right.
It ended up being, it went from a group meeting to a smaller meeting.
Right.
To a one-on-one, because Kat said, no, I'm rolling with you.
Right, exactly.
And that's the thing that, and black folks didn't stop booking me for speeches.
Absolutely.
I didn't get cancellations. Yep. In fact, there was a major corporation I spoke to literally 2 weeks later. And one of their LGBT offended group, they said, oh, no, he can't come speak. He's got to apologize to us. Black people said, whoa. We invited him. They said, now, if y'all want to deal with this, y'all deal with us. And it was, and they told me, they said, no, look. Say we invited you here as the Black Affinity Group to talk about these issues. They said, now anybody else got a problem, they can come talk to us. Right. And people I don't think people really get what that means, but it also means that you have to be about regular, ordinary folk.
You do.
And
you have to
talk to them, speak to them,
That's
hug
right.
them. Like some woman told me last
them.
night, and she said, I've watched you, and you walk through the same lines I walk through, and you just talk to people, and I'm going, I said, I'm sorry, I can't sit in the back in the
right.
VIP
and
section.
Not touch the people, because then how can you speak on behalf of the people that you don't even know? Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I also, and there's also space for us to meet with these communities that may have been offended by our relationships, what we said, because I'm working on it every day, and I've made myself open to talk to anybody who comes to me with good sense and wants to have a conversation. If you come to me trying to be disrespectful and with all the hate, I ain't got time for that. But if you come to me and say, listen, I need to understand more, because there were a lot of people who came to me and said, I'm confused. I don't understand. I don't know. And all my life I've been taught that we are supposed to stay away from certain people, or not, that these people are bad for us, bad for humanity,
Right.
and all of that. And here I see you with them, and I thought that you were something different. Can you explain it to me? And after we get into some real deep conversations, we walk away almost saying, you know what, I still may not agree. I still don't necessarily like nor support this, but I understand and I respect why you may have been there and what it is that you've been doing for black people all your life. See, 'cause
Right.
I can't erase that.
Right.
That history of where I come from and this 20 plus years of organizing that I've been doing, I can't just go throw that in the garbage, because black people sent me to the head of the Women's March. I didn't get there because any other group of people put me there. It was because my people supported me and put me in a position to be able to have that type of role.
Also, I think that the reality is, again, unless you are within a community, you don't understand the complexities of the community. You don't understand
Every community.
Right. I mean, look, I've had people come up to me and they say, "Man, why you keep putting these black conservatives on your show?" And I go, "Bro, you don't understand that while you think that all black conservatives are sellouts," I said, "that's not true." I said, "That's some black Democratic sellouts."
Right. Wow.
I said, "So now y'all want to have this conversation." I said, "I know some black conservatives who have stood with people." I said that you don't even realize. And I, like, for instance, I mean, I'll say this because I know for a fact. Republicans controlled the House, and when the bill came up for the initial funding of the African American History Museum, that bill was, everybody talks about John Lewis' name was on the bill. J.C. Watt's name was on the bill.
Okay.
John Lewis's deal was, yo, I ain't supporting this.
Right.
Unless my name was on the bill. Tom DeLay, who was the House Majority Leader, said, ain't no way in hell we funding this bill if John Lewis's name is going to be at the front of the bill. J.C. Watts took his name off the bill.
Wow.
J.C. Watts, who was in the Republican leadership, took his name off of the bill. And he said, no, put Congressman Lewis's name on the bill. We are going the initial $1 million+ to get that museum started. Republicans controlled the House, and they fought it. And JC said, no, this is about the museum. Nobody is giving J.C. Watts credit for that initial deal. That's actually what happened.
Wow, that's history that I didn't know. It's important. And I mean, that's the reason why I said I've opened myself up to talk to the Jewish community, the gay community, any community that feels like I need to understand more about what it is that you're doing.
Right.
And how can we, because a lot of people have said to me, you're not, as the leader of the Women's March, there are a lot of groups that need to be represented. We all need to feel included. And every community has those complexities. It's not, you have black Jews, you have people, all different types of folks who are in these communities who feel pressure, who feel oppressed, who feel different things. And so I'm here to sit at the table and try to work with everybody that I can work with, because I feel like we need to get free. So this is like the main goal has to be how we going to get free.
That's
and
right.
There's a whole lot of stuff, because I could sit here and start hitting all types of reasons why you can attack a black woman, but you can't deal with this one, that one, and the third one. But I ain't going to do that today. We're going to be nice on your show. We don't talk about Jonathan Greenblatt from it. I'm sorry. I'm not going to do that. Not today.
So I got to ask you this here. So earlier today, the American Airlines CEO spoke here. NAACP announced they're lifting their travel advisory.
Yep.
Your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, we've been working together, Derek Johnson and the Legal Defense Fund, NAACP Legal Defense Fund, which they always say is a separate entity that love one another, but they are separate. My attorney, Royce Russell, had been at the table. He's a civil rights attorney, so he was there not necessarily representing us, but more so just helping to bring some of the civil rights perspective. Obviously, my son, who was on the flight with me and was also ejected, he had been in the room, and Melanie Campbell from the National Coalition of Black Civic Participation and the Black Women's Roundtable. So we had a great group of folks who met with American Airlines, and this plan that they have come up with, the 4-point plan, which is like maybe more like 6 points with all the different things that they're intending to do within the company. That came out of work that we sat at that table with them and told them, your training, first of all, there was no real training around diversity or implicit bias.
Right.
You know, there was no training, period. And so they had to establish that. I think you talked earlier today about how the training will roll out, where there'll be some online, and then all of the employees, over 100,000 employees, will be trained individually. They're hiring folks of color, because if you look at who they have working for them, it's really a shame that a company like American can be in position for this long and not have black executives at the highest levels, of their company. So they're doing that. They're doing the work. And a number of other programs, and their expansion of their relationships within the black community. They're here at the NAACP conference, first that they've had this type of relationship. They're working with me on some partnerships. So this is, I think that the travel advisory being lifted is a way for the NAACP to show that we don't hold lifelong grudges unless you don't come to the table to do the work.
Well, and
the CEO was so honest about that work.
Right. First of all, for him to come here, and I was even surprised when he came and sat down for an interview. So I thought, just make a statement of there. I've already had people tweet, oh, they got money under the table, whatever. But Derek Johnson made the same point here that you just made, that look, sometimes what you have to do is you have to admit, it's like, look, in order for us to move forward, we're going to give, you give, and then to reach a conclusion, you can't stay mad all day.
That's right. No, you can't stay mad all day. That has never gotten us anything. And by the way, people they're flying. We done told black folks, the same ones that's tweeting at you saying, oh, they got money under the table, they're the same folks still on American Airlines flights when the advisory was in effect. So stop it, like, please. And there's some who did stop, and they know it because their numbers dropped, and they felt the impact of people saying, hey, we're staying away, whether it was from the advisory, whether it was from Puffy supporting me and tweeting out, and also calling the CEO himself to say what in the heck happened here. And thank you for, from the beginning, being on the story and making sure people knew what was going on. So no, you can't stay mad forever. The CEO walked into a room with us. First of all, he called me on the telephone after he got wind of what was going on. It took 4 or 5 days for it to travel to his office. Once he got the information, he called me and said, can you please come? I'll come. We'll meet with you, which he did. We met met at one of his offices, but he flew in, we flew in. And I took folks with me because, again, that's the whole deal. We had people, the Legal Defense Fund had been working on implicit bias issues within the airline industry for years.
Because before it happened to you, Reverend Barber had an issue.
Chairman Brock's sister Rosin Brock's sister had an issue, and a number of people.
Right.
This has been an industry-wide problem, and American Airlines was on the list by, I think it was the FAA that had them on the list Department of Transportation had them on the list as the company that had the most racial incidents of all the airlines. So this is a big deal that we were able to get to the table and have them to admit fault, because I'm told, I wasn't up here this morning, but I'm told that he said we messed up at a lot of different places.
Yes.
So this is admitting fault. He apologized, and they're trying to rectify. That does not mean that people should not travel with caution, because I just received a message from somebody coming in here where an American Airlines agent said to some folks leaving Jamaica. So this person says, I believe them. I don't know why they would tag me in a lie, but whatever, could be. So they said that they were leaving Jamaica, and the attendant said, are you ready to get back to civilization? Like, what exactly does that mean? Jamaica is uncivilized. Like, it made the people, especially of Jamaican descent, feel very uncomfortable. The training will help that. Now, you have to also fire people.
Yes.
Who don't follow the rules, because you can train all day.
Yep.
Unfortunately, we had to in the conversations that we had, we kept on comparing it to police brutality
That's right.
incidents, right?
Right.
Because
they're trained, but
8 officers showed up to So that's the next thing. Then 8 officers showed up to make sure that I got off of this flight. And so, yeah, they're trained, but they still, and they're trained enough that these killings are not happening in other communities, but it's happening in the black community. And so the same with the airlines. Why is it that only certain communities are being abused? And they recognize that that's an issue. So what we have to do now is continue to monitor. It's not the end, and that's what they have said. It's not the end. It can't be the end, because what we know is that regardless of what the NAACP says, regardless of what Tamika Mallory says, if in fact people still are discriminated against on that airline, when it bubbles up again, the people will take care of it on its own. They'll shut them down.
Right.
So I just hope that they actually do the work and challenge people. And the last point is on the FAAPs, the pilot in this particular situation, in my situation, should have been fired. Absolutely. Because the way in which he asked me over my head if I could behave on his flight and treated me like a little girl was completely out of line. It was harassment and a whole lot of other racist things and all that. He should be fired. But the FAA is protecting these pilots, rightfully so, on one hand, right? Because we want to be safe. You and I fly every day almost. I want to be safe. I want to know that the pilot has control of this aircraft. But if you are flying people around and you majority white men, you're flying folk, and then you're communicating with people you don't like, people that don't look like you, and folks who you have oppressed for a very long time, historically oppressed, how do we expect you to do what's right if the airline is unable to punish people who do not behave the way in which they should? It is accountability, and that's a problem. So, you know, we've been talking to Cory Booker's office and others about looking at that from a legislative perspective.
Last question. Obviously, elections are going to be huge. Every election is huge. Local, county, city, state, you name it, congressional as well, all of those. And the panel I did on Saturday was called hashtag Black Votes Matter. And what I said to them was, I think NAACP and others, I said, I think we're doing this wrong. And they were like, what do you mean? I said, because I think what we're doing is we're saying, man, you should vote. Folks die for you the right to vote. I said, but a person today, unless they understand history, they're not thinking about Jimmy Lee Solomon in Selma. And and I was asking them, well, Roland, how would you do it? I would say, we should look folks in the eye and say, man, why should I vote? Because Trayvon can't.
That's right.
Because Tamir can't.
That's right.
Because Rakia Boyd can't.
That's right.
Philando Castile can't. I said, you got to make this thing current, relevant, and personal.
Right.
And then walk people through and ask them, what's the most important thing to you, to get them to understand that you may not think that council member, that DA, that judge, that member of Congress has an impact on your life, but they do.
Oh, they do. Oh, they do. Oh, they do. And the people in Flint, Michigan, the babies who were poisoned, who can't vote, they also need us to vote on their behalf. I mean, when you think about the fact that Flint still doesn't have clean water, how can you sit there and say, we don't have to vote in an election? Are you crazy? And by the way, I told somebody today, we wouldn't even be talking about the Russian being involved in our electoral process if people didn't need our votes. Like if our votes weren't important.
Right.
In other words, that wouldn't even be a thing that they needed to tamper with the voting process.
There's a reason they're suppressing our vote.
They're suppressing, exactly.
Because we turn out.
Because we actually turn out. And because they are afraid that if people get together and really vote their way, we would know. We know that what they're trying to do wouldn't have happened.
Right.
Right? So obviously our votes are important. Voter suppression wouldn't be a thing if it were not for the fact that people want to stop us from coming together. We got to use that power that we have, that voting power and our spending power. Those are two things that I pray, if there's anything that I'm hopeful about, that I know one of these days God is just going to come down and say, bam, they're economically stable and they have their voting power in order, and they understand, don't just vote but show up after you vote, call your congressperson, walk down to the city council office, do whatever you have to do to ensure that your voice is heard. When we get that, we're going to be some telling you, bad mamma jammers.
I concur.
Well, good. Thank you.
Tamika, always good to see you.
It's good to see you, Roland. I hope to see you tonight. Partay.
Oh, come on now.
Where we going?
Come on
what
now.
Time?
I have another linen suit to sweat out.
Let's get it. Let's get twisted with it.
Oh,
Doc.
we'll do it.
We
We don't
watch
care
it,
how many other young folks there.
No. We all the way up there though. My child is 19, so it's getting.
I ain't got
we
children.
scooting on up. I know. This is.
I've
That's why
raised
you was
six.
jumping.
I've raised 6 nieces, but
No.
I ain't got children.
That's why you were jumping like that.
I'll be 50 in November. My knees still work. My hips work.
Where's the party gonna be?
I don't know. We gonna figure. Oh, look. I got an iPod, and I got a speaker in my room. I am never worried about there being a party.
Yeah, you are.
We've done lobby parties and
Yes.
suite parties. And we don't need help.
No, the wife will have a party for you.
Look,
You need
we
a
had
vote.
look at when I did the Black Puerto Rican caucus. Remember after my keynote speech, we went to somebody's room and somebody had the speaker. I was like,
Yeah.
I got the iPod. Let's go.
Sure did.
That's how we did it.
We've had some good times.
Oh yeah,
And we're gonna keep having them.
sure enough.
Black love.
All right, baby. Good seeing you.
All right, love you.
All right, love you as well. All right, y'all. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered from NAACP Convention 109th in San Antonio. I think this is going to be our last interview, and so they got some other session later today, but I leave early tomorrow morning. Hope you have enjoyed all of our coverage. We had, of course, Leon with the Black Vote Matter panel on Saturday. Chairman Leon Russell, his speech on Sunday. Derek Johnson's speech yesterday. We covered, of course, Deval Patrick, former governor of Massachusetts, his speech, the hip-hop panel that Tamika moderated, the other panel that took place, that Van from TMZ. Of course, we had that panel as well. We had, of course, the conversation today. We talked to a couple of young brothers who started a soap company. So many people, the governor of Puerto Rico. And so this is what's important. I'm telling y'all this here. And I said it on our first day. No other national media was here. Mark Thompson was here for Sirius XM Radio. No other national media was here. You would not even know about what American Airlines is doing after what happened with Tamika and the NAACP's travel advisory if we were not here.
Wow.
Nobody was here. Nobody was here talking to the governor of Puerto Rico. They weren't here talking to the other delegates. They were not talking to all those different people. This is why we have to have our own independent media. And so when we announced Roland Martin Unfiltered, we launch our daily show on September 4th. We're going to be 5 days a week. We also need, the goal is to get 20,000 of our supporters to join our Bring the Funk fan club, to give a minimum contribution of $50. Now, if you say I can't give 50, that's fine. 40, 35, 20, 10, 5, it doesn't matter. But if a minimum of $50, 20,000 people, that's $1 million, okay? Our budget is $2 million. That gives us an opportunity to, when it comes to advertisers and other people, to be able to do this. We're going to be doing more of this, and this is why we're launching this platform. This was my vision a long time ago, for us to be able to go through. When I ran Black America Web, I hit NAACP, Urban League, CBC, these different events. Now we have the ability, now with live streaming, to be able to bring this to you, the speeches and the keynotes and the panels and all those different things. We've been doing this for the past 6 months since TV One canceled News One Now. The technology has changed. We need you to step up. And Tamika knows this. She and I have talked about this a lot as well. Black folks, we got to fund what's ours.
That's right.
We can't keep expecting somebody else to fund our freedom, to fund our empowerment, to fund our enlightenment. So all you got to do is go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. I want you to tell your friend. I want you to tell your sorority sisters, your fraternity brothers. If you are not in a Greek group, fine. Tell your men's groups, your women's group, your churches. I don't care what it is. To support this, because we plan on going all across the country, going to these places, not just during the show, but broadcasting the different things that are happening all throughout the day. We have to be in control of our own destiny. And as I said in the nation's first black newspaper, Freedom's Journal, 1827, they wrote, "We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us." You might also ask, why am I saying, well, for 20,000 folks to give? Because what does Shirley Chisholm say? Unbought and unbossed. When you are independent, you have freedom and you have flexibility, and you're not beholden to somebody else. And so go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com right now. Sign up for our fan club. We want to hit, when we launch, we want to hit at least $200,000. And then, of course, spend over the next year raising the rest from our fan base. We can do this. We can fund this. We got money.
We got money.
$50 a year, folks, is a little more than $4 a month, which is 14 cents a day. And so imagine what we're able to do, bringing you information that nobody else is going to bring you. That's why we got to do it. And so I got to go. So go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com, and let's make this thing happen. I shall see y'all later. We're going to be live streaming more stuff throughout the day, something we've already shot, so look forward to that. Share this on Twitter. Share it on Facebook. Share it on Instagram. Let's spread the word. Let's make it all possible. Y'all have a great day. I'll see you later.